Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity, the podcast that explores what it takes to be well in a busy world with self-care strategies from Chinese medicine. I'm your host, Brody Welch, here to support you on your journey of health, happiness, and personal evolution. Welcome to today's show. I'm your host, Brody Welch, a transformational holistic coach and licensed acupuncturist, Chinese medicine expert. And with me today is a colleague in Chinese medicine who also has a background in allopathic Western medicine, working as an ER doctor for 10 years. Dr. Shiroko Sokitch is the owner of Heart to Heart Medical Center in Santa Rosa, California. And she is an expert at using a multiplicity of modalities to bring the body into balance and wholeness. Her specialty, which she has recently written a book on, is healing when it seems impossible. She brings hope and healing to difficult conditions with her blend of Chinese and Western medicine with a deep spiritual and emotional healing approach. Her new book, Healing When It Seems Impossible, 7 Keys to Defy the Odds, is about her particular blend, and it is available on Amazon. Dr. Shiroko, I'm so pleased to welcome you to A Healthy Curiosity. Thanks so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
First of all, I love that your book exists. I think that you're in a really unique position to have written it. I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about your path in exploring both sides of major medical systems that are available to us in the world.
You know, it all began when I was 5 years old, and my great-grandmother was my best friend in the world, and she collapsed in front of me one day. She was taken to the hospital, and within a few days, in those days, we lived in Germany at the time, and in those days, little kids couldn't go to the hospital, so I couldn't see her. And a few days later, my mom came and told me that her heart had stopped beating and that I would never see her again. And I was heartbroken. And of course, couldn't quite understand what that meant, but my mom had said her heart stopped beating, so I started imagining a machine that would make her heart beat so she'd come back to me. So that in the same moment of feeling completely devastated and lost, I also had hope that I could find something that would bring her back. And I've sort of lived my life that way, you know, and that was the day that I decided to become a doctor because that's what I understood would help. Fast forward many years to when I was in third year medical school and doing my first ER rotation, and we had a gunshot wound patient come in and I got to help save his life. And that was my first life that I got to save. So I went into surgery, and because that was where I felt like I could save lives most dramatically, and started my residency there. And within a very short period of time, I began to see that saving a life, there was more to saving a life than taking them from the brink of death, you know, because after they were saved, then they had to recover, and then they were in pain, and then there was all of their life that they had to live. And I began to be interested in that. And then, of course, had my own sort of at age 27 midlife crisis, where I came to realize that because I sort of lived my life as a surgeon, and that there was much more to life for me than that. You know, like I was trying to just be a workaholic, and it just wasn't working for me. And so I took a month off my residency, and I had a dream that if you stay in surgery, you will die one night. And it was like this big banner across my dream: if you stay in surgery, you will die. And I was like, oh my God, because I was so dissatisfied with life at that moment. I was like, what does that mean? And what should I do? And I couldn't really find another medical specialty that I was drawn to. And somebody gave me this book called The Web That Has No Weaver, which is about Chinese medicine and acupuncture. And
Ted Kapchak.
Such a beautifully,
Yes.
Yeah, Ted Kapchak. It's such a beautifully written book. It was written in 1976, I think, so it's old, but it was so beautifully written. And I fell in love with the concept of Chinese medicine. And I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to study. And sort of one thing led to the next. I left my surgical residency after the second year, and I went to work in the emergency room. And while working in the emergency room, I went to acupuncture school and studied acupuncture. And every semester, at the beginning of the semester, I'd be, why am I still in school? What am I doing? Why am I still, I've been in school for many years already. What am I still doing in school? And why am I studying acupuncture? And it never failed. It was like the hand of spirit came down upon me and said, it would show me something that either you couldn't understand with Western medicine, or I'd have a symptom in my body that made sense with Chinese medicine, but didn't make sense with Western medicine. And like it happened repeatedly because I'm stubborn, and every semester I'd ask the same question. So,
But it's a good thing that your subconscious is so great at giving you the answers. I mean, like to get a literal banner that says, if you stay in surgery, you will die. That's a pretty clear message. And you are courageous enough to listen to it, even though you'd been in school forever, or for a good chunk of your life. And so here you are, this person who is naturally compassionate, naturally a problem solver, right? Like, how can I resuscitate someone whose life has just gone out of them? And who also gets that there's a real difference between healing versus curing. That's something that comes through in your book, or even in the title, right? That like, what is the nature of healing? Because, in an allopathic definition, healing and curing could be the same thing, right? It's like, oh, you make it go away.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you'd like to speak to that a little bit, because I know in Chinese medicine, we think about it really differently.
That is a really interesting question. I remember a talk I gave at Grand Rounds in a hospital that I was an ER doctor in, and they had invited me to speak about Chinese medicine versus Western medicine. And I remember saying something about healing versus curing, and some guy in the audience just went off on me, like, we heal people, like, as doctors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, healing, to me, healing is achieving wholeness, achieving wellness. And wellness is bigger than absence of symptoms. And a lot of times people think, I want to get better. And really what they're saying is, I want to get rid of these symptoms that are bugging me. But for me, there's so much more to it. It's like, I want to be well. I want to be able to enjoy the life that I live. I want to fulfill my dreams. I want to live fully. And that has been my quest for my own life and for that of my patients. And so I'm always looking not just for the physical solutions, but for what's deeper than that. What is the root of this issue, so that I can help them get to that place?
Well, especially because there are so many people who may have to live with something for the rest of their life, but that doesn't mean that it has to cause suffering, and that it doesn't mean that it has to get in the way of their dreams, their hopes, and living the way that they want to be. Of course, all of us would like to be pain-free and symptom-free, but just because we might have a chronic condition doesn't mean that we can't be, in my opinion, healthy.
Exactly. Or whole.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that in Chinese medicine, of course, we've got the body, mind, spirit are all things to take into account. And really, healing is an inside job. It's not something that can be imposed from the outside, even if it is a surgeon who saves your life and brings you back from the brink of death. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're healed. I'm curious, what prompted you to feel like you needed to write this book?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's taken me 5 years to write this book. So what prompted me was that I wanted to communicate the depth of caring and healing that I felt would help people. And in some ways, I feel like as a physician and acupuncturist, I've worked a certain way my whole career, and having spent 10 years as an ER doctor, of course, people come to me for their physical symptoms. And so that is what I start with. And so often I don't get the chance to help them on so much deeper levels. And so I wanted to communicate all of that. And I, about 10 years ago, went through a heartbreak when my marriage ended, that of the man that I was in love with, who I thought was my soulmate. And I went through a lot, and it was like, I went through some of the deepest darkness I've ever been through, and experienced the loss of who I thought I was, because my whole life I had looked for this person and found him. And then for it to end was devastating to me, and had me reorganize my whole existence, so like I had to look at who I was, at what I wanted to do as a healer, at who I was as a healer. And the thing that helped me heal and come to a place where I felt whole again myself was the love of the people in my life. And this undying desire to continue to be a powerful healer and person, so that's what kept me going. And that's what I wanted to share with my audience, was that there's such a depth when you go through something difficult. There's such a depth of healing that can occur. That's what I wanted.
And I love that you put love as the very first of your 7 keys that you identify. I just thought that was beautiful when I saw it, because love, it really is a powerful healing modality unto itself.
Yes. Well, really, I call it love is our healing superpower. I love hero stories. I love the hero movies and the action movies. And while I was writing this book, I was going through this thing where I couldn't stop watching all these action hero movies, because the hero, and we're so used to talking about heroes as people who have a mission. They go out into the world and they have a mission, and they have this quest, and it's difficult and challenging, and sometimes it looks like it's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden, they find their team and they work hard and they get to a place, and then they've achieved their mission. Well, I believe that is what's happening in our bodies when we have a difficult health challenge, is that we're on a hero's quest to find our wellness. And it's maybe more isolated or we often feel more isolated, because when you don't feel well, you feel like you're alone, and you feel like there's not those people out there to help you. And I feel like that's the hero's journey, that we find our team, we find the people who are going to help us, we find the keys, and the superpower key is love.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I really love the metaphor that you use of the hero's journey, because it is really like, for whatever the cause is very individual, person to person. Whether it is, in Chinese medicine, it could be coming from the emotions. It could be coming from an outside pathogenic factor. It could be coming from pollution, or, something in our environment. It could be something that we're eating. It can be hard to know. If there is a gift in a symptom, it's of helping us tune in to ourselves, what might be going on, such that this imbalance is arising, and getting curious about that. It's like, if we see our symptoms as clues, as the next thing to pay attention to on our path, as opposed to something annoying that we need to beat into submission, it's a very different relationship that we have with our bodies, and with the things that maybe not necessarily pleasant.
Exactly. Yeah.
In terms of just getting into this, to love as the superpower, for someone who wants to put that into practice, what tip might you have for them, for someone who's got something going on and they want to channel this superpower?
So there's many elements to this, and one of them is, first of all, of course, to remember that your body is your friend. Your body is not your enemy. And a lot of times when a person feels ill or doesn't feel well, they feel betrayed by their bodies, especially people who are really used to functioning at the top of their game, and then something suddenly brings them down, and then they feel betrayed and angry that their body is doing this to them. And as best as possible, try to remember that that's not the case. Your body's not your enemy. Commonly, people have autoimmune diseases in my practice, and autoimmune means your immune system is attacking your own tissue.
Self, yes.
And that does definitely sound like it's your body is your enemy, and it still isn't true. Like your immune system is attacking that tissue because there's an infection hidden there, or because there's a toxin hidden there. Your body's not stupid. It's extremely, extremely intelligent, and it knows what to do. So the first thing is to come from it from that angle. And the second thing is to try to love your body, which is very, very difficult. So a lot of times people have a hard time directing love at themselves.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a very simple tip that maybe sounds kind of counterintuitive. But if you can't love yourself, go love somebody else or something else. So I say to people, go be loving towards your husband, or love your kid, and just go give love somewhere. Because by giving love is a boomerang. It comes back right to you.
Well, it's like you're vibing on that same wavelength, right? You're tapping into love, the energetic of it. And it's a two-way street. You can't be in that stream without feeling love.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have a hard time loving your own self, then go give someone else love. And one of my patients has been reading my book, and he pointed out that I did not mention pets in my book at all. And part of that is because I don't have any, but also because connecting with a human is such a different thing than connecting with an animal. But even if you feel like you don't have a human to connect to, then connect to a pet and get that love or give that love. And the cool thing about animals is that they give so much love coming right back at you.
A few episodes ago, I was talking with our mutual friend, Dr. Anna Kabecka, and she, in her book, talks about oxytocin as being like the queen hormone. And so I thought that was an interesting tie-in, like oxytocin, of course, being the bonding hormone, and that which is secreted when we feel love and connection, and that is one of those things that can be so important in especially countering stress chemistry in our bodies, helping us heal.
And I also mention it in my book. So yeah, it's a very, you want to maximize your oxytocin.
Yes. You also talk about listening to your body. That's a phrase that gets kicked around a lot. And I'm wondering if you could make that a bit more concrete for us. Like, what does it actually mean to listen to your body?
People are always asking that question, and it's a very tricky thing, but really, by tuning into our own bodies and by learning what the signals are that our bodies have, we can be better at healing ourselves. And I always start with, you already listen to your body to some degree. You know when you're hungry. You know when you feel uncomfortable in a space. You know when you're tired. Most people know when they're tired. Some people ignore when they're tired.
Or override it actively with
or override it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing about medical training, of course, is that it's so counterintuitive to healing, because we are forced to override our hunger, our fatigue, or whatever in order to do the work that we do in our training programs. So it took me a really long time to learn to listen to my body, but Chinese medicine for me was the thing that really, really helps, because the organ, and you know this because you've studied Chinese medicine, but the way the organs work and the way the emotions that they're connected to and the pathways of energy that travel through your body, all of those are information that we can use to listen to our own bodies. So the chapter in the book that is about listening to your body is really, first, start with what you know. Start with the things that you already know. How you know when you're tired, you know when you're hungry. Pay attention to those things. And then expand on that. Take that little bit of information that you have and make it a little bigger. Okay, so when do I really feel tired? And begin to go into that. Like, what does tired mean? What does fatigued mean? What does it mean to be sleepy? And when do you go to bed? You can dig into those kinds of things. And those are questions that we ask in Chinese medicine, right? How do you sleep? How do you fall asleep? When do you fall asleep? What do you feel like when you sleep? And all of that information is information that is available to each person by asking those questions of themselves.
Yeah, exactly. We can start to learn a little bit more about our own tendencies. And really, it's like I found that in studying Chinese medicine and understanding a bit about the correlations between, for example, the sense organs and the internal organs, or between the emotions and the internal organs, that it's a different framework for your intuition. You need to know something in order to you need to know a little bit about anatomy, for example, in order to visualize what good posture is, or to visualize what a broken bone would look like if it were healed. Like, you need to have those images in your mind in order for you to be able to follow through on using, like, understanding that connection and amplifying it. And that learning a little bit about what the Chinese medicine worldview is like, a lot of times people start to see themselves in a really different way, and those symptoms start to click into place looking through this lens in a way that they really don't without it. Because why would you ever think that? Why would you ever make those connections? And so it can be really kind of eye-opening, right? To be able to look through another lens in order to, like, basically becoming bilingual with your body, right? Is that, like, getting a sense of your energetic anatomy as well as your physical anatomy.
Yes.
The other thing that I appreciated from, I forget what section of the book this was in, but the idea of the question that people often ask and get hung up on of why do I feel this way? And how the solution is perhaps to like, yes, it's a good thing to get curious as to like, why do I feel this way? But there's also better questions we could ask.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you could just speak to that a little bit.
The why me question.
Yeah.
I think that must be in the trusting the process chapter, which is the seventh key. So the seventh is, let me just run through the 7 keys real quick,
Yeah,
so that people kind of get a picture of the flow of the book. The first key is love, and it has to do with love, not just of yourself, but the love connection you have with whoever is on your team for healing you, the love that you have for your family, the love that you have. Your cells are connected by the love that they have for one another. If you think about it, our bodies are connected by love. So in some way, I'm crudely connecting chi and love, or the concept of energy and love together, because the flow of energy is through love. The second key is the balance, the physical balance. So this is where my medical expertise comes in, and I call it a triangle of wellness. So this is one of the things that blending Chinese and Western medicine for the last 25 years has taught me, is that there's certain structures that if you take care of them, then everything else falls into place. And that's what I call the triangle of wellness, which is your hormones, your immune system, and your nervous system. And if those things are functioning, then anything can heal. And usually as a person gets more and more ill, those structures fall apart, or those structures may be weak to begin with, and then the illness comes in because the immune system's weak, or the hormonal system's out of balance, or the nervous system's out of balance.
And all three of those seem like, just to underline the fact that all of those are interconnected as well, right? Like that they are,
Exactly.
they all influence each other, and all of those pillars need to be there in order for us to feel our best.
Yes, exactly. And what's cool is that the same supplements help all three of them. So it's vitamin D and omegas. So all three of them are improved by vitamin D and omegas. There's other supplements too that help individual components, but
okay. So vitamin D and omegas, can we harp on that for a second? I know I definitely want to get to all 7 of these keys, but there have been these recent studies, or these recent kind of news flashes of like, oh yeah, fish oil capsules don't really work the way that we think that they do, or like taking vitamin D, we've seen no difference between people who take it and people that don't. What do you think of that, or what do you make of taking supplements for these things versus, for example, getting them dietarily?
Well, ideally, if our environment was clean and our earth was in the state it was, 100 years ago, we'd get all of that from our environment. We'd get it from our food. We'd get it from the sunshine. We'd be outside more. So the health of our planet and the health of our bodies has declined because we eat industrialized food and we're not getting those nutrients anymore. But of course, ideally, you get as much as you can from your food in any way, shape, or form. And so what I think about supplements is I think of supplements as either additions to our nutrition or medicine. In some cases, we need them, and in some cases, we need to support our nutritional status by taking certain supplements. You can prove anything with research. So to some degree, whatever we read in the press, you have to go deeper than that. And I've been a questioner of some conventional medical things that we've learned over the years. And there's always a backlash. 30 years ago, they said a low-fat diet was healthy. And now a high-fat diet is considered healthy. Yep. And, the truth is somewhere in the middle, most likely. So like the pendulum swings and the science shows one thing and then science shows another thing. That's another thing I love about Chinese medicine, is that we always talk about moderation.
Exactly.
Finding balance. And that's the point of this book, is that balance is so unique and so individual. So where is the balance for you?
Exactly. Okay. Thanks for speaking to that. So we've covered this triad.
Second key.
Triangle, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then the third key is finding your own unique lifestyle. part of that is learning to reduce the noise, which means usually going through some sort of elimination diet in order to get to a place where you have the ability to listen to your body. So the third and fourth keys are next to each other, and they're sort of interchangeable because there's an element of listening to your body, which is the fourth key, to the third key, which is learning to find the right lifestyle for you. So there's an experimentation process that goes back and forth between those two. And lifestyle is, how you eat, how you exercise, how you sleep, how you live, how you arrange your space, all kinds of things. And finding what's right for you, learning to listen to that is vitally important. And each chapter has what I call fundamentals, and the fundamentals are keys that help unlock that key, so that, learning to listen is like start with what you know, and finding your own unique lifestyle, start with reducing the noise, and experimenting with various things.
I would say like part of the reducing the noise seems like also reducing the sheer amount of input that we have coming from the outside, like people, media, whatever, telling us what we should be doing and thinking and eating, as opposed to really like internalizing that and amplifying the voice internally of like, how do we want to live? What's important to our heart?
Yeah, exactly. And then the fifth key is the emotions. Each organ in Chinese medicine, as you know, has emotional and spiritual functions. And part of learning to listen to your body is sort of also tuning into your emotions and recognizing that emotions are held in your body in certain places, and the role that they play in your sense of wellness. And each organ has an emotional, like the liver rules the emotion of anger, the heart rules the emotion of joy, and the digestive system rules the emotion of worry. Then you can begin to see patterns of your own again. And the whole idea is to understand your own self. And then the sixth key is the idea of never giving up and having patience and persistence. Actually, Anna Quebeca wrote the foreword for my book, as you know. Mm-hmm. And her comment was in the foreword was her first thought when I told her all the keys was that I should have started with never give up and patience and persistence. And then as she read the book, she realized that it was right in the right place. And it's because we can, on this hero's journey, we often hit a place where it feels impossible. We hit a place where it feels like there's no hope. And it's actually an essential part of the journey to hit that place where things seem so dark that there's no hope. Because when you hit the bottom and you find your own way out of that darkness, then you are infused with the hope inside of yourself. It doesn't come from outside of you anymore. It's the strength and the willingness and the power of healing that comes from deep down inside of yourself. And until you get to that place, then all of the people who help you and all of the people on your team and all of that stuff is still good and is still helpful. But what they're doing is driving you to that place, or your body is driving you to that place where it's so dark that it seems like there's nothing to find. And then you come up out of there and you rise like the phoenix.
Yes. And in doing so, it's like it builds your resilience. It engenders its own sense of strength, I think, to be able to go into that feeling hopeless, feeling like nothing's ever going to change. And it's, having that dark night of the soul that is followed by like just it's something we can trust, right? Just like the seasons or the law of day and night. It's like it's bound to change. And if we allow ourselves to go into it, if we drop the resistance to it, a lot of times we can get to the other side of it with less suffering.
Yeah. And then the last key, which is the one that answers the question of why me, is the trusting the process. And both the never give up, when you reach that place where it seems like there's no other answers, or when you reach where it seems impossible, to trust that life has led you there for a reason. Wherever you are, that you've been led to that place for a reason. And in our modern culture, we forget those deep spiritual places inside of ourselves. It's those moments of difficulty, those moments when we're challenged, that we grow and that we also learn things that will maybe help other people. So the why me question, I don't want to really, because there's going to be a moment where you ask, why did this happen? You kind of have to ask that question. And it's just then how deep do you take that? Why did this happen? Well, maybe your immune system got weak because you've been discouraged in your life, or because you're filled with grief. Because in Chinese medicine, the lungs rule the emotion of grief, and they rule your immune system. And people suffer from grief, right? But then we don't know how to process grief. So then it affects our immunity. And so then maybe an infection gets into your body. And then because it doesn't get treated the right way, or it doesn't get recognized, it doesn't get taken care of properly, then it begins to run havoc through your energy system, you know. And all of this is based on Chinese medicine, how energy flows, how energy runs through your body, and how it's connected to your emotions and your spiritual process is all a part of, you know, I've done Chinese medicine for 30 years and I still love it because it has that element of mystery, that element of how do we really heal, you know, and really looking into that part of ourselves that knows how to find that answer.
And really, we may never know the truth of why something happened or
Yeah.
why you. And if we pan back and if we look at all of the factors, if we look at lifestyle, if we look at emotions, if we look at really everything that could have influenced us, sometimes it's looking through the Chinese medicine lens, a story becomes clear, or looking through a functional medicine lens, you can see something else. And ultimately, it's having more than one lens to look through allows us to make sense of it differently. But there is also sort of there is a mystery in terms of like why
Mm.
this journey and not others, and being okay with the not
Mm.
knowing. And like just inherent in Chinese medicine is that paradox of there's always a little yin within yang and yang within yin, and there's like dancing with both of it. And that idea of like, yes, not giving up and moving towards an answer, but at the same time being patient and being where you are with it like there is that tension between yin and yang,
Mm.
or between patience and persistence, between trust and never giving up. That can be, I think, a balance to be mindful of, because we need both, right? Like we need to not lose hope. We need to advocate for ourselves. We need to continue turning over those rocks and figuring it out. But at the same time, I know in my life, like I have gotten to the point where like there's just times where I'm tired of being a patient. I'm tired of like collecting lab test results and wondering what's wrong, and instead actually putting the attention on what's right with my life and what's going well, and amplifying that idea of, okay, maybe I actually just need to focus on the good stuff right now, and just do what I can to take care of myself, but from an intuitive place, as opposed to trying to run down a concrete answer.
Exactly.
Is there anything else from your book that you feel like you would really hope people take to heart right now? Maybe someone listening who is in the midst of a chronic health struggle. What message would you have for them?
Well, I start with love and I end with love.
Mm,
It's really all about love. And in those moments when everything feels dark and everything feels hopeless, if you can connect to love on some level, on whatever level you can, that's the place to start. I always say, remember that you are loved, because in times of my own deepest darkness, that was the hardest thing for me, was to feel like I was loved, and to know that there's love in the universe, even if there's not necessarily the love. How we define love is sometimes so limited, you know, and that there's so many places that love comes from, that to open your heart and to find all the places that you can to connect to love.
beautiful. And as a practitioner, I feel like sometimes similarly, all we can do is love our people. There's certainly people that I'm working with, and I feel like it's not clear what to do. It's a confusing picture, but I know that I can always offer them love. I can always send them the positive energy that's in my heart, and because we are all connected through this idea of energy, right? This idea of the life force, which is both matter and energy, and which of course converts into, they're changing into each other all the time. That has a resonance in the person, and that so yeah, yes to tapping into that. It's so powerful, and a really, I think, potent message that here you are with all this medical training, and that's what you come back to, starting and ending with love. I think that's beautiful. Dr. Shiroko.
It's what saved my life.
It's what saved your life. Yay. What if people want to connect with you or get your book? Where can they go?
Well, my website is hearttoheartmedicalcenter.com, as in HEART, like heart. And my book is on the website. So the book is available on Amazon, but on my website, there's a link where if you put your receipt from buying the book, you get a free workbook. And the book has exercises at the end of every chapter that you can do. And I created a workbook out of the exercises so that you could just go, if you wanted to, delve more deeply into the really healing journey that you could go on with the book.
Awesome.
And so hearttoheartmedicalcenter.com has everything you need.
Great. I'll make sure that gets into the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure to talk with you.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening today. For more episodes of A Healthy Curiosity, you can visit the iTunes store. If you appreciated today's show, please leave us a review. This helps other people to find the podcast. You could also head to brodywelch.com, where you can find free self-care resources, learn more about Chinese medicine, and let me know what you'd like to hear about on future episodes. I'd love to hear from you. Till next time, be good to yourself.